Welcome to the Power Factor Show. Episode 117.
Hi, welcome to Power Factor. I'm Larry, and this week we are going to dive into a little bit of reloading. I'm going to show off my setup and my storage methods and reloading methods, give you some little tips along the way. Maybe you'll learn a few things. You can refer back to episodes 23, 24, and 25. Steve and Rick talked a lot about reloading, and I'm going to get into it a little bit with a few more details, and then we're also going to do a caliber conversion on the Square Deal, Dillon Square Deal reloading press that I use. Okay, so first of all, I just want to show you my setup, my storage methods, all that kind of stuff. It's fairly modest. There's guys that have 10 tons of stuff. Maybe we'll have some viewers go, oh, I got 10 times what that guy's got. But this is just an example for you guys that are just getting into reloading and just kind of starting out. Here's an example of my setup, and this will get you upwards of 5,000 to 7,000 rounds a year comfortably, which is right about what I shoot. First of all, here my storage locker. This cabinet I've got here, it was just a sheet metal cabinet bought from Sears, Craftsman, just got a few stickers on there. And this is where I store my all my volatiles, right? I got my powder, primers up on top. I do have loaded ammunition in here as well, major, minor ammunition, and I've got some 22s I stocked up on 12 months ago, which I'm really happy I did. And anyway, so this is just how I store my stuff. I'm going to go ahead and grab some powder out of here. This is Alliant Power Pistol, and typically I use Ramshot Competition as well. We've talked about that on other episodes. You can see I use Federal primers exclusively. I've used Winchester in the past, and they're fine too. I find Federals are, absolute 100% reliable, and I like those. So let me go show you the press I got set up. Okay, so I'm just going to show off my reloading press here. It's really nothing fancy, but it's a really, really good machine. This is Dillon Precision Square Deal. It's the same press you saw in the reloading episodes back in episode 24, 25 with Rick and Steve. This is an auto indexing press, which means every time you crank the handle, you'll see the shell plate rotates to the next station. I didn't do a full stroke just so you can kind of see that. There's a couple of custom touches I've done to this press, and let me show you those. This is standard right here, which is the bracket that holds the finished cartridge bin. And I had this custom built while I was working. And I had this bracket here custom built while I was working in an industrial facility, and I just kind of mocked it up with some cardboard and brought it to a welder and just said, hey, get 2 scrap pieces of steel and weld these together for me. So that's where I put my empty cases ready to go. So it's real short. They always talk about economy of motion, real short distance to grab a case and drop it in the press. This is setting up on Dillon's what they call the strong mount, and I've got their bullet tray as well. Now another custom touch I've done here is I take this little funnel, and you see I've got a hole here in my bench. Take a look at that. And so that hole, I drop a funnel right here, and that hole goes down underneath the bench and drops into a jug, and I'm saving all of my primers basically to take to the metal recycling facility. And believe it or not, you'll get these days $1.50, $1.75 per pound for brass. And so I've tried it once and brought them a small quantity. Now I'm filling that jug and going for a larger quantity. So if there's ever all my primers drop in there, and if I ever have a case that's just too mangled to reload, I just drop it in there. If I find a case that's cracked or what have you, I just drop it in there, and eventually when that gets full, I'll take it in for, I don't know, $40, $50, and that's money for more primers. So little tip for you there. You'll also notice I have a single stage press mounted rather closely to this one here. I've figured out that was a good place for me, and I resize brass on that, and I'll talk about why. And I'm also getting set up to load 40 caliber on that as well. I'm also getting set up to load 308 on that as well. But this is a 40 caliber full-length resizing die, and generally that's not required. I loaded for a long time just loading on this press. Cranks out very good quality ammunition, and then once upon a time I had a couple of guns with very, very tight chambers, and I found that some rounds were getting stuck in there during a match, and it's really hard to rack that action open. And so then I started chamber checking every round I loaded, which took a long time. I'd take the barrel out of the gun and drop each round into the barrel and make sure it would fall out. And I would have, honestly, about a 5% rejection rate. Now maybe only a 0.5% was really going to cause me trouble on the range, but being conservative, I felt that maybe 5% of them were just a little tight. So I got this this die, and this is a quick release die here. This is the Redding GRX die, and it's a full-length resize. Just locks into the press like that with a quick turn, and it has this fits into the shell plate or the shell holder, and we'll show you how that works in a moment. But the 40 cal brass sits in that little recess, and you crank them through there, and from now on, just to be on the safe side, I process all my brass that way. I still have one pistol, which is my Glock 35 with the Barstow barrel. It's got a fairly tight chamber, so I don't know whether I really need it or not, but it's become part of my process, and it's really not that big of a deal, and we'll show you that in just a minute. So anytime we're working at the reloading press, we always wear safety glasses at all times. So I'm going to put mine on now. So let me just show you the resizing. First of all, let me just show you just real quick. These detergent buckets are great. I keep a big one for dirty brass. I run my brass through the tumbler and transfer them to a bucket that's labeled clean brass. And then you see up here, I transfer them to an even smaller bucket here. And these are not only clean, but it's been resized through here. So these have already been resized, but I'll just show you real quick what this die looks like and what it looks like to operate. So I set the thing right here. This holds the lid open, and I do a case lube, like a Hornady one shot, and let them sit for a few minutes, and then get to cranking on these things. This has got a carbide die, and this is the way I operate it. They do sell a little bottle that fits over the top of this, so you can just keep going until the bottle's full. I've seen other modifications that you could put like a Ziploc plastic container here that all the cartridges start filling up into, and there's a little hole on the back side, and you can have them drop into a bucket or something like that. But this is my process here. I pull them out of a little tray that I usually set over here after they've been lubed, and just sit here and crank them through here until this little bucket's full. And this bucket looks pretty small, but I tell you what, when it's full, I know that if I load, say, 300 rounds, it's down to about here. I would imagine this little thing here will hold about 1,500 rounds or so. So this is a good supply for me at the rate that I shoot, which is 2 matches a month maybe. This is a good supply to feed my press with. So the first thing we do is usually when I take the cover off the press, I've got a little card I stick in here that reminds me what the press is set up for in the past. This is just a piece of the container, the packaging for the primers. So I'm going to pull this out. This is set up for 9, and I'm going to go through what it takes to set up this press for 40. So if you can follow with me here, the first thing we got to do is remove the powder hopper. And on this press, it's really simple. First of all, this is what Dillon calls the fail-safe rod. This keeps the powder hopper cycling. So first thing you got to do is take this little clip off. I absolutely do not do this with your bare hands. You'll cut your finger every time. So I kind of prepped this ahead of time. I left it loose. This little thing comes out, and then we can take the powder hopper off. That just involves loosening this one screw right here. And this little, this piece right here comes out. This is what retains it. I just store everything right here in my little bullet tray, and the powder hopper comes off. Be very careful not to lose this little Delrin bushing that fits up inside there. So get that and set that aside. Now, I've already emptied my hopper before we started on this video, but I've not adjusted it yet. So when I clear the hopper, the first thing I do is take the lid off and get the powder, and I dump it right back into the container where it came from. This was the Ramshot competition powder. We're going to be changing over to Alliant power pistol today. So first I dump the powder back into here, kind of give it a little shake, make sure all the powders come out of there, because there is a baffle down inside here that the powder will get up underneath. So you want to make sure you get it underneath, you get it out from underneath there. And then I hold it over this, and I'll cycle the action of this powder bar many times until I don't see any powder, any dust coming out of there. And then that's clear enough for me. I mean, if there's a half a little fleck in there of some powder, it's at the kind of medium pressures that we load to, it's really not going to hurt anything if you've got one little flake of powder that's not the one that you're going to. You know, you just want to make sure it's relatively clear. And get that little bushing back up in there. So set that aside, get the lid back on. Always keep your powder dry and keep the lids on. Keep them in their original containers as well. Okay, so we're changing calibers today. Like I said, this is the 9mm setup, and there's 4 bolts here on the tool head, and all you got to do is remove these 4 bolts. Okay, so getting this last screw out of here, and then your tool head comes off. Now save those screws for the next when you put the other tool head on there. So this is these are the upper end of the dies. Now these are proprietary dies, and you might have heard that before, and I'll show you why. Here inside the housing, the main body of the machine, these are the actual dies that are inside here, and we'll show you, we'll get you some close-ups of those, but your adjustments are made here, and as you can see, you thread this. For example, this is the number 3, this is your seating die. Number 4 is your crimp die, and what you're doing is you're just simply setting how much these dies are going to raise up until they hit, and then that sets your adjustments right there. So we'll show you what these dies look like. This is it's labeled here, your number 1 die, and it says 9mm, so they're all labeled and stuff. This is your carbide resizing die, and then that goes along with the primer punch. This is what knocks out your spent primer, and it sits in that die just like that. Your number 2 die, well, that's the powder funnel right here. This is what actuates your powder bar, and also it fits inside the case, and then this is what sets the flare when you bell the case to receive the bullet. That's done right here, and the adjustments are made by screwing this die up and down to adjust how much bell is on your case. You come around to the number 3 station, which is your bullet seating, And here, this matches your bullet profile, your nose profile. And this just channels, feeds your bullet. It's like a funnel to keep the bullet from getting loose. Kind of guides the bullet up into there. And then your fourth station is your crimp. And this right here takes the bell out of your case and does a little taper crimp. And then, like I said before, screwing that die up and down adjusts how high this raises up when it makes contact with the loaded round. It comes up here, makes contact, and then that's where it stops. And then and that's what takes the, like I said, takes the bell out of the brass case. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to do is you got to take the shell plate out. This is a 9mm shell plate, and we're going to switch it over to 40. Now, you've got these 3 brass locator buttons, is what they call them. That keeps your brass from falling out of the shell plate, or it allows you to take the brass out if you get something screwed up midway through. The best tool to get those out is an empty piece of brass. I just reach in and kind of scoop them up with an open case mouth. And that's a lot easier than using your hand. They just kind of come right out like that. And everybody's got empty brass around. That's the best tool for that. The next thing I do, just using a pocket knife, is to pick this little wire out of there. This is the ejector that kicks the loaded round out of the shell plate and kicks it down into the bin. And then after that, the shell plate bolt just comes right out of there like so. Now I make sure every once in a while, here's another tip for you, every once in a while this thing might loosen up on you just a bit. I put some Loctite on mine, some blue Loctite, but in the past, before I was doing that, this would get loose on me and I'd break the bolt. I broke it one time. And so I used to just check it every couple hundred rounds to make sure it was still tight, or I would see if this shell plate wiggles like that, then the shell plate bolt is loose. Okay, so our shell plate's loose. Now one thing we got to really be careful about, there's a little ball bearing underneath this shell plate. So we don't want to get too crazy here. You'll see it sitting in there, and that's what stops this shell plate from freewheeling, just rotating forever. It stops in each of these 4 holes, keeping your shell plate indexed. So we're going to make sure we don't lose that little ball. And then to make our caliber change, just reverse the process. Okay, so our shell plate, you ready? Yep. Okay, our shell plate is installed, and the next thing we got to do is just drop the dies in here. The number 1 die is very obvious. It looks different than all the others, so that just simply drops in here to station 1. The rest of these I do have to read them and make sure I don't put them in upside down. This is number 3. The funnel goes down. That would make this one number 4. Just double check. Just drop them in there. And set your shell plate on top. Pop these screws back in there, and you'll be good to go. Now all the settings that I set before stay with the tool head, so I don't have to make any adjustments. As long as my bullet profile doesn't change, I'm not making any adjustments to any of these settings, except for I'm going to be doing a brand new load I've never tried before, and so I will be making adjustments to the powder charge. Okay, our tool head is now installed, and all we got to do is just drop the powder hopper back here on station 2. Again, like I mentioned earlier, make sure this little plastic bushing is still up in there, and as you can see, the retainer, whatever you call this piece here that retains it, you see that this rides in that groove, and that's what keeps this thing from slipping off. So we just install that, and this is just about ready to go. About ready to start setting our powder charge. So let's just get our fail-safe rod back in place. In order to get it up there, sometimes it's hard to reach. All you gotta do is just lower the ram, and that raises up on this guy and fits right in there. Now, one thing, you guys, if you guys already know about the Dillon presses, one thing you'll notice is that not only do I have this fail-safe rod, I also have these springs around my powder hopper. That's what used to be used to return the powder bar. Now, I bought this press used, and these were on it when I got it. This was also on it when I got it, and I just left it that way. I like the fact that I can. This is, to me, a guarantee that this powder bar is going to be returned. And then I also like the fail-safe rod, because seating the primer, there's a spring at the bottom of this rod that I get some feedback on when I'm seating primers. So I'm just going to fill my powder hopper now. Like I said before, this is Alliant Power Pistol. It's just a powder I've got left over from back when I was shooting 40 caliber open division in USPSA. I tried several, 3 or 4 powders, and settled on this one here. It gave me the right pressure and gas pressure and gas volume combination for my particular setup. Now, this is also just kind of a medium burn rate, just kind of all around good pistol powder, and I've found a load in a book which we'll show you that we're going to use. So first of all, I just fill up my hopper. A lot of guys say that they fill it to the top and run it till it's about halfway empty, and then fill it back up to the top again. I typically just fill it about halfway, and I've seen no problems with that. I run it till it's just about empty. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set the powder charge. Now, since I just poured powder into the hopper, the powder bar and everything might not be totally primed or charged all the way. So I typically dump, I don't know, 3 charges just to kind of make sure things are flowing. And just dump them right back here in the top. And then now we're going to weigh a charge. Now, the first thing I do is I've got a pan here, and we've got an electronic scale. And on my pan, I wrote 136.2. That's how much this pan weighs. And so I tear the scale, and I just want to make sure everything's kosher. And there's 136.3, 136.2, good enough. So first I just go ahead and leave that on the scale and tear that out, or zero it. And I already took my powder hopper off camera and gave it a couple of turns. We're going to see if we got anywhere close to where I want to be. I give it a little tap. I always just like to tap it just to make sure we get everything out. That's telling me 7.5 grains of powder. That's going to be a little high. So we've got our press converted over to 40 caliber now, which it was 9mm before we started today. And I'm going to be using these Hornady XTP hollow point bullets. Now, no offense to our buddies at Rainier or anything like that, but when I bought this Hornady press, because I was interested in getting into rifle loading, I got a better single stage press than what I had before. They've got a program, or they did have a program, maybe they still do, where you get some free bullets if you buy, presses and whatnot. And so I bought the whole entire kit, and so I guess that means I spent enough money to get 500 free bullets. You see I've got a bunch sitting over here. Now, I've never loaded these before, but the load we want to create today, I'm interested in making just kind of a practice round that simulates a defensive load. So I chose these bullets based on the fact that we've got a Hornady loading manual here, 8th edition, and I found in this book, I found these bullets, the 155 grain XTP, and I found a powder that I have already on the shelf, power pistol, and here's the loads they recommend. And so that's how I chose this load. Now, that's how I chose the bullet and powder combination. Now for the load, how do you know where to start? I mean, if you don't really know what you're doing or what your goal is, you just want a light load, just start with the lightest, start at the, at the bottom end here. They've got 1,000 feet per second for their lightest recommended load with power pistol gives you 5.8 grains. Now I looked up a defensive load that I would like to emulate, and it uses a Hornady XTP 155 grain bullet, and the velocity posted on their website is 1180 feet per second, which is pretty darn hot. I'm actually going to bring it down some, and I'm shooting for 7.0, 7 grains of powder, which theoretically should get me in the 1100 feet per second range. If you do the math, I think that is a major power load, and I'm interested in just, like I said, simulating a defensive load for actually for IDPA. So that's what we're going to do today. Okay, so we weighed one charge. We're at 7.5 grains. That's not bad, not a bad guess, but I'm going to go ahead and make an adjustment here already. Another tip for you guys, you see I marked my the adjustment bolt here with a red mark, just so I can kind of keep track of where everything is. I feel like I want to bring it down about half a grain of powder. Maybe it's almost half a turn. I don't know, we'll find out. Now one thing you have to think about is I just reduced the powder charge. So there was already 7.5 grains in the cavity of the powder bar. I just reduced the volume of that. So I just compressed some powder a little bit. Sometimes I don't like to do that, but since I'm doing this on camera, I kind of forgot about one of my processes here. I'm just going to dump a couple loads, a couple charges here, back up into the hopper. Make sure it's all cleared out. And now we're going to weigh this charge. Get my scale turned on here. Tare weight is 0. Tap it out. Look at that. 7.1, 7.2. Let's do another one. Let's just see how we're doing here. 7.1. Pretty close. Do it again. Never take just one reading and call it good. 7.2. Okay, I've got a few here that tell me that it's a little hot. I want 7.0. So I'm going to take the case, put it back in here. Now here's what I meant to do the first time. So I've just dumped the powder into the case. I'm going to leave the ram down. Now this is empty, and I'm going to make my adjustment. I'm going to go about 6 o'clock there on that red mark. Now keep in mind, this one has 7.2 grains in it, thereabouts. We're going to dump it. Now, let's check this one. 6.9, 7.0, 7.1, it's fluctuating. It's going to fluctuate a little bit, especially as I make vibrations here on the bench. .2 still. I don't know if I believe that. We're getting close. The scale starts off at 6.9. We're definitely getting close. Still telling me 7.2. I'm going to make another adjustment to the powder bar. Right about there feels good. Dump this case. And then check it. 7.0, 7.1. I feel comfortable with that. You know, this is a medium charge, a medium velocity I'm targeting here. According to what's in the book, I'm not pushing any pressure limits. Back when I was loading for open, I was using a lot more powder than that. in this same case. However, I was using a 135 grain bullet. But according to the book, I'm kind of right in the middle. I feel comfortable with that. And now we're going to weigh 10 charges and then average the 10. So when I drop 10 in here, now you do not reset your scale. Just tear it out. Throw 10 charges. I should have about 70 grains total. I'm looking for 7 per case. I want to see 70 after I throw 10 charge weights. Okay, I've weighed my 10 charges. You can see there on the screen, hopefully. We've got a total of 70.9 on the scale. So that's almost 7.1 grains per charge. I think that's going to be okay. I think we're just going to go for it on that. I'm going to crack open this pack of bullets here first of all. See what these babies look like. It's like a truncated cone, hollow point, fully copper jacketed, of course. Hollow points have copper base. Dump those into the bullet tray there. Now I want to talk about handling primers and give you guys some tips on that. Federal packaging is a little bit thicker than Winchester. They pack their primers sideways. Now first of all, you'll see, I can get a little zoom up on that. They've got these little cutouts in the cardboard to keep this plastic tray from sliding in and out. So the first thing I like to do is just kind of lift them up here with the pocket knife to get them up out of the way and make sure they're not in the way. Now keep in mind, I'm keeping my hand here all the time because I don't want this cardboard to bow out and primers to leak out. So I always flip them over, pull the tray out. First of all, count them up. Not just count them, but just make sure every single one has a primer in it and that they look okay. Every once in a while, well, I'm not going to say every once in a while, one time in 30,000 plus rounds, I found one that was just a bit mangled from the factory. So these look good. I'm going to go ahead and put the cover back on, take them over here to what's called a flip tray. Now this is from Dillon, and this is a metal flip tray, and it's got these grooves on the one plate. So we're going to dump the primers out like this, put the thing upside down and slide the cardboard cover off, and they're on the grooved plate. Now they're on the grooved plate because these primers have what's called an anvil, and the little 3 legs of the anvil will catch on the grooves and they flip over. That's one reason it's called a flip tray. Now every once in a while, once I get to where I'm down to the last couple, sometimes I don't like to just shake them endlessly. And Winchesters seem to flip better than Federals, but I'll handle them by hand. Make sure they're all cup facing up. Now I can see inside there. Here's a quick tip. Check inside, look inside every one of these just to make sure that you've got the priming compound. Make sure Federals is green in color, at least their standard primers are. I don't know about their other ones, but there's a green compound inside. Just kind of take a quick glance and make sure that they've all got the compound inside. Then you take the lid of the flip tray, set it on top, flip it over. Now they're all cup facing down. And that's where you take your what's called a pickup tube from Dillon, and with small primers, small pistol primers, you've got a yellow tip and this blue tip at the end. We'll show you what that's for in a minute, but all you got to do is just come through here one by one. All right, we've got all our primers picked up. Now, what I do is, if you want to follow me over here, I take my, what's called the primer follower, and just to make sure these guys don't fall out, And to make sure you don't have one stuck in the tip there, very gently push them up there so they're out of that yellow tip. Now they're all sitting down here on this cotter pin, and we're going to go dump them into the press. This is the primer magazine, and there's a tube inside of a tube. This outer one is a hardened, thicker metal tube as protection in case there's any kind of detonations down here and you get a chain reaction. They'll shoot out the top and not out in your face. But we're gonna drop all these primers now. Keep in mind they're facing cup up now, and all you gotta do is pull the cotter pin, and they just go dumping right down in there. So we take our primer follower, which is just a real lightweight plastic rod, and it just to make sure the primers keep on feeding, puts a little weight there, and then as Steve and Rick showed you back in episodes 23, 24, 25, when this finally hits this little trip, this little trigger, that's your low primer alarm. Tells you, at least the way I've got mine set up, I got 3 rounds to go. I can put 3 more empty cases in the front end of the press before it's empty. Okay, so now you can see the press I've got set up like we talked about here in the beginning. I've got a very short motion for my hands to go through. I pick up my case. I'm going to set the bullet on stage 3 here, and this is a process that was detailed back in those older episodes on reloading. But stage 1, we are decapping, resizing that case, which now we've already resized it once in my full-length resizer, but that's just step 1 anyway on this press. So having already resized it, it makes it a little easier to do it, since easier to do it on this press. You don't have to pull quite so hard. Station 2, you might have seen I pressed forward, which lowers the ram and forces the primer up into the case, and we just repeat that process. Now, on station 2, we just belled the case, and now I just seated the primer on this one. Now I've got my light set up so that I can see into the case. I can see there's powder in there, and I always want to look in that case as I'm going. So the bullet gets seated here. And at this point, I just close the crimp, or I just crimped the case, and there's the first completed round that came out of there. We've got a seated primer, and now at this point it'd be a good idea to check the overall length of that cartridge. So let's go do that. So I just got a basic dial caliper here. I'm going to take that first round we loaded and just check our overall length. I think the book calls for 1.135 inches as the SAMI spec for 40 caliber. This is actually a little bit short. We're looking at 1.123. So I'm gonna go ahead and make an adjustment on my seating die so the bullet doesn't seat quite so far. And now that's just a very simple linear adjustment. I know that I want to come out about 10 thousandths of an inch. So all I have to do is measure the height of my my seating die and just raise it up 10 thousandths, actually about 12 thousandths, and I'll be right about where I want to be. We can show you that. Okay, so I need to make an adjustment to my seating die as we just showed you. I'll use my dial caliper, I'll use the back side and make sure it's sitting level and flush, and just drop it down, and my measurement I see here is 52. So I want to raise that up to about 64, and then that will lengthen my overall length of my cartridge by about 12 thousandths. Just take any basic wrench here and unscrew, raise this up. Let's give it about 3 turns and we'll see where we're at. $74, a little too much. Pack it down. About 1 turn and a pinch. $64, that's exactly where I wanted to be. So, what we're going to do is just start loading again. Now the next cartridge to come out of here is still going to be short. So we're going to set that one aside. So this one, these two here are just going to get set aside. Now this one here should be right about 1.135 in length. And just take my caliper here and we'll just check that out. There you go, 1.137. That's just fine. That'll load in a Glock pistol, that'll load in a Glock magazine. I'm happy with that. And it's going to vary a little bit. You'll see some variances within a couple thousandths of an inch. So as I go through this process, I'll check the next few, and as I'm getting done with this first 100, I'll check another few, and we should be good. We'll have a good batch of ammo. Now we've got the press set up. My powder charge I'm happy with. My overall length I'm happy with. All there is to do now is just get to cranking. This machine, this is called the Dillon Square Deal. They call it that because the ram is square in its cross-sectional shape. But they claim anywhere from 300 to 400 rounds maybe per hour. I guess you could do that if you discount all of your case prep, all of your primer, loading up your primer tubes, all the little things that go along with getting ready, making adjustments, all that kind of stuff. But if I was to start the clock, if I was to have a stopwatch and really get this thing going, I suppose I could do 300, 350 in an hour maybe. I don't know that I've ever done 400, but I can stand here. I've loaded, I don't know, 600-700 rounds at any one given time. And that's just 2.5 hours total to get up to about 700 rounds. And as you can see, I'm running, this is about my standard pace. I can't recommend this machine enough. It puts out good quality ammunition. It is only good for about a dozen or so pistol rounds. As you can see, it's not tall enough in here. You don't have enough clearance for any rifle rounds. The dies being proprietary, you can only get them from Dillon as far as I know. I don't think anyone else is making them. So you're limited to about the dozen or so calibers that they offer. Now this setup here, these are like I said, the 40 caliber setup, but it also doubles as a 10mm setup if I was to load 10. The only difference is I would change out the primer system to a large pistol primer, and I could load 10mm on here if I had something chambered in 10mm, which I don't. Same goes for 357 38. That caliber conversion is 2-in-1, so that's a good deal. And so yeah, basically that's what loading on a Square Deal looks like. Like I say, it's a good quality machine. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space. I'm real happy with it. It's been a real good machine. Okay, so thanks for watching this week. My modest little reloading setup. Like I say, this is a good setup for 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 rounds a year. If you want to start, if you're going to be shooting more than that, you might want to step up to 550, 650, 1050 presses from Dillon. They've got case feeders, and you can start getting into automatic bullet feeders and all kinds of things like that. But for an average person like myself, I think this is a good setup, and I really can't recommend it enough. It's been really good. So we're going to have a trivia question this week, and here it is. Washington State, anyway, has a limit of how many primers and powder, actually, that you can store in a residence. My question for you this week, my trivia question is, what is the legal limit storing primers at your residence in Washington State? Now, I know it might sound a bit mundane to comb through Washington state law, and maybe I'm not really asking you to do that, but let me just say that there's a hint, there's a clue in this video if you go back near the beginning, and you'll see, I think you'll get the information you need. So send in your answers to our email account, powerfactorshow@gmail.com. Check us on Facebook, facebook.com/powerfactorshow, and go see our website, powerfactorshow.com. Leave comments for us. Please tell us you like us on Facebook. And my little public service announcement right now, this is March 2013. Write your Congress people and tell them that you are not interested in any new legislation which only restricts you as a law-abiding citizen and doesn't do anything for solving crime. So write your legislators, call them, write them emails. There's, like I said, like we said before, there's Ruger.com's got a thing. You just put in your address, and they, boom, and just they'll send you a letter to every representative in your area. So do that if you want to preserve your rights, your Second Amendment rights. Join the NRA, join the Second Amendment Foundation, and back to Power Factor business. Send us any of your questions, comments. We've got a stage design episode coming up that we want to do both for IDPA and USPSA. Send us your stage designs, and we'll do another Reader's Right episode soon as well if we'll get enough questions we can answer. So thanks for watching this week, and hope you learned something. Write in email if you have any questions for me about reloading. Thanks.